I'm here to tell you all about Advisor 3.0 Change Agents. The Must Attend conference for financial planners is happening in London on 18th of May 2023. Sizzling keynote speakers include Baroness Karen Brady, CBE, and the legend that is Seth Godin, plus Ola Abdul and Sean Hegarty. Co-hosted by Abraham Okasanya and Robin Wigglesworth, guests can enjoy insightful interactive panels, debates, networking, Q&A sessions, and so much more. Grab them now at www.timeline.co/Advisor 3.0. You're listening to Retirementals.
Welcome to Retirementals. My guests today run one of the finest boutique financial planning firms in Oxfordshire, in the old country, in fact. Expert Wealth Management is run by Dom Spalding and Jonathan Hunt. Gents, welcome to Retirementals.
Thanks, Abraham.
Hi, Abraham.
For you guys will be known to many of our audience on the podcast, but do you guys want to give us a little bit of an introduction to who you are and tell us a little bit about the business?
A little bit about myself, first of all. I think one of the questions was something around our journey into financial planning and how we managed to find ourselves. Back in the early 90s, everyone used to say you never deliberately started a career in financial planning. You just sort of fell into it in some way, shape, or form, and that was certainly true for myself. When I left university, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. I knew I was reasonably good with numbers. I did quite well in maths and things like that. So I asked my sister what she did because she had a company car. I thought that was a good career to go into if you're going to give you a free car to start off with. And she told me she was a life assurance inspector, as they call it in those days. And I said, "Oh, that sounds pretty cool." So I went and started looking for a job along those lines, and ended up at Friends Provident, where I met Dominic. I suppose one of my ambitions was, once I started calling upon financial planners, or back then they were called independent financial advisors, I thought I started to realise that actually dealing with clients would be quite fun, and at some point I wanted to step across into that. And then after a while in that, I just thought, gosh, this could be done better, and better than what we were doing where I was. And I always had a bit of an ambition to open my own business. And a chance meeting with Dom, who I met originally at Friends Provident, and we worked very closely together at Friends Provident. Just so happened at the same time as Dom was thinking about starting something, and it was, almost like we met on the high street and thought, haven't seen you for a few years. And that's how Expert Wealth started.
Dom, yourself?
Yeah, so I started in financial services in January 1983, I think. So January next year represents 40 years in this mighty profession of ours.
Wow.
Yeah, where's that time gone? So I used to live in Surrey, born and bred just south of Guildford, and my first job in financial services came about as a result of a trip to Guildford Job Centre, and Friends Provident in Dorking at their head office were looking for staff at the time, and I applied for a job in what was then the property and mortgage department. I didn't get that job, despite being told by the people at the job centre that Friends Provident would, and I quote them, employ anyone. But obviously they didn't employ me to start off with. But I did get offered a job in the income protection department, and I spent a year in Dorking, doing various roles in income protection, from individual claims to group income protection business administration. And I was travelling from Godalming in Surrey to Dorking every day, and I happened to have an appraisal with my line manager and said, look, is there anything closer to home, because it's costing me an arm and a leg in fuel to get here every day. And ended up at the Guildford sales office working for a guy called Terry Parfitt. Started off doing administration, then did a trainee inspector course, and in I think it would be July 87, was appointed as what was then an inspector, looking after brokers, as we used to call them in those days, predominantly in Guildford and Woking. And from there, did that for a few years, became what was called a senior inspector. And Jonathan, funnily enough, was one of my first, I don't know, would you call them a trainee? I don't know, trainee that I looked after. It's funny how things change in life, isn't it? But anyway, yeah, so he was one of my first trainees. I spent 16 years at Friends Prov, left in, that would be 99, I think, about a year after John left. And ended up working for an accountancy IFA. Things didn't really work out there, although it was quite a useful introduction. And as John says, a chance encounter, probably somewhere in early 2003, led us to setting up Experts, and we started trading in October 2004 from my kitchen table, the same one as is behind me right now.
That's incredible. 2000 and 2004. So that was 18 years ago, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
if I remember the story correctly, there were 3 of you starting out this business. How did 3 become 2?
Well, this would be 2008, 2009, wouldn't it, John?
Yeah, about a few months before the financial crisis. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it was mid-crisis, because I've got a recollection that we parted company with our third director at the end of March 2009. So basically, we gave him his stake money back. I think we all put 10 or something £1,000 into the business at day one. So we gave him his money back and asked him to take his clients with him elsewhere. Now, look, obviously, there's always 2 sides to every story, but for us, it was the right thing to do at the time, and go forward, just the 2 of us. And I think in the year after that, bear in mind it's mid-financial crisis, our total revenues for the year were somewhere just north of 300,000.
That's incredible. So let's talk about Expert Wealth today. Tell us about the firm, the people. Give us some numbers if you can, just to give us a sense of where the business is today.
Okay, well, I'll kick off and then John can add in some numbers. So there's 2 planners, myself and John, 2 para planners. Then we have 3 client relationship managers, 1 trainee client relationship manager, and a practice manager. So there's 9 of us all together at the moment. I hope I haven't forgotten anyone. We also have, she's coming back tomorrow, we have an undergraduate that works with us in the in the university breaks, who's looking for a career in financial services in future. And we have a work experienced lad from one of the local schools coming in February half term as well. And then we work with outsourced people. So we've got outsourced compliance. We work with you, we work with Albion. And that's it. Numbers wise, we have just over 180 client families, comprising 225 individuals that we look after, with assets under advice around about 120, just north of 120 million, depending on where the markets are at any one time.
Yeah, I mean, Dom mentioned back in 2008-9 when we lost our other director, we were running at about £300,000 or £350,000 sort of turnover. Last year we cracked the million, so that was a good milestone.
Wow!
And I think this year we will go through the barrier of £1 million worth of renewal income. So I think that we've and to be fair, we've done that all through complete organic growth. We haven't particularly over the years advertised. I suppose our strategy for growth really was just let's just do a damn good job for people and they'll refer their friends to us. And it seemed to work quite well. I think maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later on now, but we're certainly moving to a different phase of our growth, as it were. But to get us where we are, sort of around about the £1 million mark, and we work with Brett Davison. Brett always keeps on telling us the first million's always the hardest, so we'll see if that's true or not. But certainly, as you grow and develop, you go through all the different phases. You do meet different challenges. It's sort of like you come across different things that you have to deal with as you go through the different stages of the growth. So in terms of numbers, that's sort of where we are really. So and that's just with the two of us advising. We're hoping to bring other people through and start.
The 1 million mark is a big milestone, isn't it? For an independent for any business. I was looking at the figures the other day. It was a while ago, and I'm probably going to miss it, but it's something like probably certainly less than 20% of companies in the UK have a turnover of more than £1 million, right? So it's a special club to be the £1 million club, isn't it?
It was always an aspiration for both of us, probably. But I remember John several years ago said, we need to get up to 1 million. And I was like, well, it's just a number. Perhaps that's the sort of, I don't know, maybe that's me sort of thinking, well, is that really possible? Bit of self-doubt in there maybe, but, the way this business works is very much on referrals, word of mouth, clients referring clients, and it happens very slowly. And anyway, here we are. We're about to push through £1 million recurring revenue, which is another little step along the way, isn't it? It's another milestone. Who knows what's possible in future?
Yes, indeed. And and I'm doing the averages in my head. Those are incredible averages. If everybody says to me, I don't benchmark myself against other financial advisors and all that stuff. That's true, right? But there's an African proverb basically that says that if someone's going to recommend a fashion style for you, you should look at what they're wearing, basically, right? So my point being that how do we know who to emulate and who to learn from if we don't look at some of the best and the brightest in our profession? And I'm not suggesting that revenue per advisor is the only way, right? Or is the be all end all, but it's certainly an important metric if you think that based on what you've just said, you're probably doing, I don't know, 4 times the average financial advisor. That's insane. And you're doing it with 4 people each in terms of team. And I know that Dom, you've talked before about this diamond team structure that you have. So can you talk a little bit about the team behind the success and why you think that that's important?
Okay. Let's go back a bit in time. John mentioned that we work with Brett now. We did his Uncover Your Business Potential 3-year course, and we finished that 3 years in September 2021. Prior to working with Brett, we worked with Steve Billingham for several years. There's a whole story about how we came to change that and work with Brett. But we started on this journey of changing from a financial advisory practice to a financial planning practice back in probably 2011, 2012. One of the first things we did was engage with Steve Billingham. Then we started working with Albion. We did the whole Kinder training courses. There's been a series of steps and also giant leaps in that time period to end up with where we are now. One of the things we introduced 5 or even 6 years ago now was a client advisory board, and several things have happened in the business as a result of input from the advisory board. And one of those was in relation to succession planning. And the advisory board was saying to us, we needed a succession plan. What happens if one of you goes under a bus? What happens if, you have an accident on your bike and so forth? We've had a couple of false dawns on that front with the succession plan. But we're now at the point where we're more or less at capacity for the work that John and I are doing, and we're working. We now have 2 power planners. A year ago or so, we started work on bringing the whole power planning function back in house, and we were finding ourselves in a situation where we were both working with both power planners, and it was getting very confusing for clients and very confusing for us. It was clearly very inefficient. I'd read about diamond teams on Michael Kitcey's site a while ago. I got in touch with Steve Greenfield at Dimensional and said, have you got anything on this? And he pointed me to their podcast with Angie Herbers that they'd done. So we chatted about it as a management team, myself, John and Sue, and we raised it at our client advisory board last May, June time. And to us, this sounded like a good idea. And we thought, well, let's give it a go. We have to do something. We have to be more efficient. We need to progress our succession planning. We want to be able to offer these young people, good career opportunities in the business. We don't want them, getting to level 4 and then looking elsewhere, or getting to level 6 and looking elsewhere. So we set up the Diamond team structure, and that sort of started really in September this year, and we're gradually embedding that in the business now. So the idea of the Diamond team is that you have a lead advisor at the top of the Diamond, supported by an associate or shadow advisor, and or power planner and client relationship manager in the team. So in terms of succession and career path for our young people, this gives an opportunity for them to come in at trainee client relationship manager, progress to client relationship manager, then paraplanner, and then advisor. If that's what they want to do. But equally, if it gets to the point where, for example, they say, well, actually, you know what, I'm happy being a paraplanner, we've probably got space for that as well in the business at some point in the future. So where we are then is we're at 2 diamond teams with 2 paraplanners, one of whom is going to become an associate advisor in the new year. We're just going through the work with FCA to get her authorised. And at that point, she'll start advising clients, some of our existing clients with simpler affairs, and some new clients as they come through the door.
I was just saying, part of our journey and part of our experience, I think, has been a couple of things, I think, where the diamond teams are really going to help. One is Dom and I are certainly very much close to the point where we're completely at saturation point in terms of our own capacity, if you like. Plus, I suppose, as we move forward, there's going to be other things in life that we're going to want to do. And also, I think there's a certain amount of our time that needs to focus on building the business now as well. So there's a whole load of areas where the development of diamond teams and hopefully bringing the next generation of people through is going to really help us in those causes, as it were. I think the other thing to add was that whilst we did sort of have a vision of where we might like young people to progress through, I don't think it was overly clear to them how that could possibly happen. And certainly in the past, if we're honest with ourselves, we have lost 1 or 2 really good young people. And part of the reason, it's not the only reason, there are many other personal reasons and things why people move on, but part of the reason perhaps was because we didn't have that clear vision. And certainly one of the things that Diamond Teams gives people is they can see that how that progress is going to happen. So like Dom says, one of our paraplanners are going to start working to coming towards associate advisors. So young people below that are starting to say, oh, there's a gap appearing in the paraplanning department, as it were. And, I can see how I can start to move into that, and, the wheels keep moving. And I think that all of that is going to be extremely positive for us.
Yeah, if I can just jump in there as well. We work with Adam Owen at Next Gen Planners, who does our. We've got 2. Our most recent recruit, trainee client relationship manager. He's going from level 0 to level 4. He's a law graduate, so no financial services experience before joining us in June this year. So we're supporting, mentoring, and sponsoring his diploma qualifications. We've got a chap that joined us, so that will be 3 years in February, I think, who's about to finish his level 4, should do that in January, and so he'll start then, working as a trainee paraplanner, if that's the right terminology. And we have our 2 paraplanners that we're taking from level 4 to level 6, all through, the next gen planners, qualification framework.
Incredible stuff. I mean, the thing that keeps jumping at me in all this conversation is really the importance of people in a financial planning business. To an extent, they are your most important resources, but they are also the hardest to come, to hire, to recruit. What would you say the biggest challenge is, if you just look back over the last decade, in terms of bringing people to the business, retaining people in the business? How's that gone so far?
Yeah, well, I think one of the beauties, I suppose, of growing organically is that you can remain very close and to your set of values as a business, and that's really important to us. The sense of being a family, that clients are going to feel comfortable in that environment, and like we all often talk about, we're looking after your money as if we're looking after our own money, sort of thing. And so as you grow organically, I think one of the beauties of that is the fact that you can really maintain value. So as you're recruiting and everything, you'll be thinking along those lines. And I think unless you get that part absolutely right, I think it's incredibly difficult to build a successful business where everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet. You've got a happy camp, etc., etc. I suppose to answer your question, one of the key challenges in that is as you're growing organically, you don't automatically have the positions and the jobs available at the time some of your people are ready to move into them, and that can be a real challenge. Like you've got a youngster chomping at the bit, say, to become a paraplanner, but as a business, you're not quite at the point where you're ready for another paraplanner, for example. And so, sometimes the young people can see the longer term, bigger picture, but sometimes they can't. So and hence, I think that's probably been one of our biggest challenges, and maybe there's an element in that we haven't recognised it at the time, and perhaps could have done more to keep the journey going with those individuals that have left. But I'd certainly say the biggest challenge is recruitment. I mean, we are in not particularly rural Oxfordshire, but we are in Oxfordshire. We are on the doorstep of London, so can be a quite big pull for people to jump on the train and 45 minutes up to London. So the pool of talent around us is relatively small, if you like. And so finding good people that fit into your culture and having a succession plan that you can have, that they can see the future in the business, I suppose, is one of our biggest challenges, and the one thing we talk about often, and often looking to try and see everything that we can do to ensure that journey is a good one for everybody concerned.
Yeah, I think I would just add to that what we're trying to build is, the business of our dreams, if you like. If we focus on building the business, our view is that the right people will come. If we've got the structure for them and the career opportunity for them, the right people will come to us. Maybe not immediately, but they will come.
So you've talked a lot about succession planning, and I get that in terms of succession, in terms of client service, bringing new stream of advisors in. How are you thinking about succession in terms of business, in terms of the ownership of the business? Do you see that changing at all? Is that part of the plan?
As Dom says, it's a really interesting question, because it's something we've thought more recently, I suppose. Up until now, we've been concentrating on building the base of the business and getting the business right in terms of all its processes and all those types of things that you have to do to make sure you've got a business that is going to be successful into the future. And certainly more and more, we're now thinking about what's going to happen next. And I think one of the things we always say, and this is something we've discussed at our client advisory board with our actual clients, is that I'm always interested in the options that financial planning has when the directors become too old and decrepit to continue anymore. And I think Dom and I both say we love what we do. We get an awful lot of pleasure out of what we do. We love working with our clients. So we're not sat around here thinking we want to hang up our boots anytime soon. But we recognise also there potentially will come a day when that does happen. And so I think that question of succession has become increasingly more important to us. And then you start then looking at and investigating different things. So you start looking at things like, what do a lot of financial planning firms? Well, a lot of financial planning firms just sell out. Potentially an easier option, if you like. They potentially just think, okay, well, I'll just go to an asset accumulator and go along to them, get my whatever it is, 5 times EBITDA or whatever. When we look at that sort of model, you start thinking, and you start looking at all the faces and the families and that you look after, and even now their children that you're looking after, and you just think, could I actually look them in the eye and say, by the way, thanks very much for all your loyalty over the years, and by the way, we've just sold our business to JP Morgan or someone, and we're just going to disappear off into the sunset. I think we find that quite difficult to come to terms with, as it were.
Well, you'd have to move away from Oxfordshire to start from.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, so I think we've increasingly started to focus on how do we develop the next generation so that when we get to the point where we are ready to hang up our boots, as they say, that we've got people in place that are almost being developed and trained in a position where they can take the business forward. Now, how that actually looks like from a technical perspective or whatever, we probably don't know right now. It's something we are thinking about. We're investigating and thinking about it. But basically, in terms of general philosophy, if you like, that's our sort of thought process at the moment.
Yeah, if I can just take that one stage further, we had this as an agenda item at our most recent client advisory board just a couple of weeks ago, and unanimous feedback from our client representatives was along the lines of, you're focusing on the wrong thing. What you need to focus on is keeping the people, not building keep the people that you've got and have the structure there, that there is a career opportunity for these people to move into. The person or persons that eventually take on the reins may not be with you at the moment. They might be, but they might not be. But if you create the opportunities for good people, they will stay. So, for example, what one of the things that was spoken about was, you're taking people up from level 0 to level 4 and then level 4 to level 6. And we know from experience that when people achieve these levels of qualifications, that's the point at which they start looking around to see what else is available. And if the opportunities aren't present at the firm that they're at that particular time, that's when they start to look around. And this has happened to us in the past, both from a negative point. We've lost people who were good because we didn't have the right opportunities for them at the time. But, our 2 paraplanners that we've got with us now both came to us at the point where they got to level 4 and didn't have any opportunities to go anywhere else in their current business. So we've seen that happen in real life. So that's our strategy, or that's what we're going to work on, is making sure that, we have those opportunities there and we keep those good people that we've invested a lot of time, energy and money into, at the critical points in their careers.
Another thread from this conversation is your client advisory board. So talk to us a little bit about what the flip is, the client advisory board, who's on it, how do you run it, just what is this thing, right? I know you're talking about it as though like every one of us knows what client advisory board is. I'm sure people have an idea, but
okay, yeah, okay. So the idea of the client advisory board is that we have usually 6, sometimes 1 or 2 more than that, of our let's just say our best clients. That doesn't necessarily mean best in terms of the biggest assets that we look after. Maybe most suitable clients, business people with business experience. We try and get a mix of ages and gender as well, and experience. So usually 6 people who meet with us on a twice yearly basis and help inform our strategic decision making. So at the moment, or most recently, we've been doing that off-site, but hopefully from June next year, we'll be doing that on-site, because we're just in the process of taking over the other half of our building, because we've run out of space in the west wing of the old dairy. So 6 people who come together with us, and we sit down and we talk to them. We usually have 3 or 4 topics that we want to talk about. Some are a recurring thing, like succession planning, and we talk about it. We talk about what we're thinking of doing, what problems we're having, and these people will ask us some pretty sensible questions, sometimes some quite difficult questions, and we are generally open and honest with them, and they help us hopefully make good decisions about where we go and what we do.
If you think about the privilege of being in a financial planning firm, particularly if you're like a lot of us will be sort of focused, well, not necessarily focused, but our clients tend to be more towards the retirement age of life, as it were. If you think about the massive experience and knowledge that you've got within your client banks, and I think that it's such a joy to be able to tap into some of their lifetime experiences and help us make decisions about the future of our financial planning business and the things that we do. And it's just like, at first I thought, oh gosh, this might be a bit tricky, or it might be a bit awkward to be asking them to do it, but they absolutely love it. The people that come along, and we do mix it up, we do change the people that come, so we get different viewpoints and things. But they actually love it. And in fact, they often say how much they've enjoyed it, and they often talk about how much they've got out of it themselves. We do have some young people on the board who join us, who are also running their own businesses, and they learn something from it as well, just through the conversations we've been having. And it is it's just a great forum to be able to put ideas on the table that you might have. And like Dom said earlier, sometimes they've told us, look, you guys are overthinking it. You need to focus on something different. That's not the problem. That's not the issue. You really need to be focusing on that, but also to have a direct access to the very people you're trying to serve and get feedback from them on what is important to them. We've had some surprising things come up that we thought, oh, that won't matter to clients at all, and actually they're telling us completely different sort of thing. So it's a great sounding board, if you like, to be able to hear from them and hear what they've got to say. So.
It's incredible. So I want to start to wrap this up then. So it's taken, in this case, 18 plus years to be an overnight success. You've got a great team, a great business. You're laughing, Dom, because it's taking you 40 years to become an overnight success. You've got a great team, a great business. Where do you take this? Where do you think that this could go as a business? 5 million in revenue, 2.5. Where do you see this go?
Our big, hairy, audacious goal, as Brett would call it, is 2 million. And the biggest priority we have at the moment is increasing capacity, because, as we said earlier, John and I are more or less at capacity. So the Diamond Teams is a really important project that we're working on to do that. We always want to be a boutique financial planning firm. we've got no aspirations to have lots and lots of advisors running around all over the country. We want to provide a very a world-class financial planning service to clients on a very personal basis, and that's where we're trying to get to, and that presents huge challenges, but it's also tremendously exciting. I said a few minutes ago, 10 years time I'm going to be nearly 70, God forbid. Do I still want to be doing this when I'm 70? Look, I don't know. I absolutely love what I do. I love trying to run the firm, trying to advise clients. I love working with with our young people and trying to bring them on and fulfill their potential. It's such a wonderful challenge to have, such a great opportunity. So I can't ever see myself hanging up my boots.
Dom, I every time I meet you, I can't believe you're touching on 60 or whatever it is, because you're so fit. You're always sharing your pictures of riding bicycles in somewhere in Europe. I mean, why not? Who says you can't be doing this fun?
My Garmin tells me that my fitness age is 50. So I'm going to take that, and therefore I've got plenty of time left ahead of me.
Yeah, you've heard this thing about biological age versus chronological age thing.
That's it.
Sorry. Yeah. Jonathan, you have the last word.
But after all these years, he's eventually got me on a bike, and but I'm not quite as fast as him at the moment. But I think for me, I like success. Success is in a business like ours. A success is ultimately to develop the business and the people within it to the point that actually they don't need you anymore. And it's something none of us want to admit, and probably none of us will find easy when that time comes. I've dealt with a lot of family businesses that have been through this, and I'm sure it's something that won't be easy. But if you can build a business to the point where actually you make yourself redundant, I think you've done a bloody good job. So I think that's how I'd sum it up.
Yeah, and working with our next generation, all being well, that won't be too far away. Maybe 3 or 4 years. But if we can basically hand over the reins to them one way or another, so that they're dealing with the vast majority of new and some existing clients, then we can gradually, over a period of time, make ourselves redundant, I should think.
Good stuff. And Dom, you can spend more time riding bicycle. And I know, Jonathan, you're always in Africa. What is it that you're up to in Africa?
Well, that's where my wife's from. And also she, we both set up
I didn't know that.
A charity. My wife's from Kenya, so that's our main connection with Africa. But also we set up a charity that supports orphan children out here, called the Nasio Trust. And so she spends a lot of her time out here running that. I think she's got a staff of something like 60 out here, supporting probably nearly 500 children now through their education and medical care, feeding programs, all sorts of things. So she's sort of spending more of her time out here. And, we've built a lovely home, so why not spend more time in the sun? Short and t-shirts weather here today, so.
That's incredible stuff. So you're recording this from Kenya? I didn't know that.
Yes, that's that.
Look, gents, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you very much for being so generous with your time, with your experience and wisdom. And it's certainly been a great pleasure, huge pleasure for me, not just, having this conversation, with you, but, learning and knowing you as professionals in our mighty profession, and, watching your business thrive and make a difference to clients. So Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Abraham.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you as always.
I'll be remiss if I don't thank my incredible team who worked very hard to put this program together. Thank you very much, guys. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Timeline Retirement Planning Software, and PyTech, low-cost flat-fee model portfolio manager. And to you, our listeners, thank you for your time. I hope you've had as much fun listening to the program as we have making it. You can find more about the show at retirementals.co.uk, and you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is Abraham on Money. Until next time, thank you.